Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Kevin Murphy from KDM Construction. Kevin, welcome to the show. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you very much.
So, Kevin, give us just really quickly here. So, Kevin, you work with Septic Systems, and I got to say, Kevin has this incredible presentation he's going to show for us. And the knowledge, going through the PowerPoint alone, the knowledge in there about septic systems was stuff that I had no idea on. So I appreciate you bringing that knowledge to us today.
There's been some recent changes. I think that I'm going to get into some stuff that's going to be highly beneficial to realtors that are out there that's going to impact the deal. The costs today are such that it's something you need to take a look at and understand to a degree.
Nice.
Well, absolutely. Well, yeah. Well, do you want to just?
Yeah. Well, to ask you first of all, before we get into the PowerPoint, tell us a little about your company, what you guys do, the range of services you guys offer.
KDM Construction, Calgary, been in business for quite a while. We do a wide variety of activities, renovations and construction, but also on-site waste management. I got into that because of my own cottage and my own rural property. And do other stuff as well through that company. However, I've got my contact information on the screen. If you guys, anybody out there wants to have a discussion, wants me to come on site to one of your locations, I would be willing to come out and give you just a kind of a brief, this is what I'm seeing here. And if you wanted to go forward with an inspection or something like to that effect, that'd be great. We do design of systems, which is something you need for a permit. We do installations, so we do the build. And of course, when you can install it and design it, you can inspect it.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right, Kevin. Well, let's get started here. So I guess what questions can people ask when they start looking at a property that has,
Septic systems.
Yeah.
So the main question that I would ask if I was a realtor, I'm going on site, it's my initial introduction, say, to the vendor of a real estate property. I want to know what has happened with the system. What has changed? So generally speaking, if you have more people, more renovations, if you added rooms, you've added washrooms and stuff like that, that's bad. If the kids have moved out over a period of time, and it's down to 2 people from 5, that's good. And I'm going to show you a situation where the occupancy went from 2 to 5, the bedrooms went from 3 to 7, and there was a very marked result of that change when they didn't do the renovation of the septic system to handle the increased flow. Excuse me.
Oh, interesting.
So how old is the system? How old is it? 20 years to 25 years. They're designed to typically last. It depends on what the circumstances are in that house, on that particular property, how many people, etc. After 20 years, you're going to start seeing some problems. How old is a pump? Warranties are usually about 2 years. They can last 10 years. They can last 1 year, depending on what's going into that system. As I had stated, has there been any development? If you've added rooms, then the design should change. And most people, they renovate the house, but they don't renovate the septic system. Have you experienced any problems? And this is where I find, and you're going to see in some upcoming photographs, that you're maybe not going to get an honest response to that question.
Right.
So
right.
I want to go to
number 12 here.
Perfect.
So now we're going to talk about what we can see on site. Is that right?
Exactly. So
Nice.
when you're out there, there are some things that you can definitely see, and there's some stuff you can see from outer spaces. I'll show you.
From outer space.
Absolutely.
We're like ground level to like 50,000 foot view. I guess probably higher than that, but
He's an amazing septic guy. He sees stuff from outer space.
I like
So I'm hopefully in this media that you can see in this particular picture that I've taken here, you can see the shovel on the right of center just slightly. And just beyond that shovel, there's a bunch of green grass. And what that grass is showing is where the actual septic field is located in this particular instance. When you have a greening of grass at surface, you probably have something that needs to be attended to. So the point there being, and I'm going to get into an explanation of why that can occur.
So green grass is not a good sign like we would expect.
It's an indication that water's coming up. So if I was going to take Kristen's tea and I was going to pour it on the carpet here right now, it's going to, first of all, the water's going down.
Right.
Okay? It's going to hit the carpet, it's going to continue to go down, and it's going to hit whatever surface that will stop it from flowing down.
Right.
If it's starting to go sideways and up, you've got a problem.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yes.
So grass roots are typically about 3 inches deep. That field is at least 2 feet deep.
Interesting.
Huh.
So you can walk out, where's the field? Show me where it is. You can see this, like in some instances, as you'll see in a moment, a huge amount of green grass. In this particular instance, you have a very significant problem. The fluid in the field is actually flowing down. It's hitting the soil and it's running out the downslope end of the field. So 100% almost of the fluid that's coming out of the septic tank is coming into this dead area. And it's been going on for so long that it's killed everything. So you may not be able to see that in this picture, but there's some trees there that are dead.
Interesting.
So I just want to go to the next thing. This is another shot. It's quite marked, and you can see on the left-hand side of the picture that it's starting to grow further to downslope. So this is a picture of essentially a flyby about 2 years earlier. Google Earth, as some of you are probably guessing right now. You can see two properties. There's a fence line, and some trees. And on the southern portion, I'll say, you can see this property. I guess it needs some water or something, but nope. At any rate, you can barely see the field or the pipes, and then about left of center and below center, there's a green bunch of grass. It's very difficult to see in this particular picture, but what I see when I look at this is I'm seeing the beginnings of a failure. Okay? Yeah. Now, let's look at the property to the north. There's a fenced-off area probably for animals, horses, or something like that.
Kind of angular fence that's happening at the top there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just south of that angular fence, you can see a very, very green area. That is that individual septic field. It is basically failed, and they're either experiencing problems or they're very soon going to experiencing problems depending on how much usage that they have in the system. So what's causing that in this particular instance would be my opinion that it's a biomat, which I'm going to talk to here
Interesting.
Okay.
fairly quickly. But
Yep.
you can do this at home. If you've got a listing, you can take a look and see some stuff from the space. So biomat is something that is generated by the anaerobic and aerobic bacteria working on the organic matter in a weeping style system where the water starts infiltrating the system from left to right in this particular diagram. It starts on the left and it's going to work its way gradually as the water is forced out to the right of the field. Over time, it will cover the entire field, and the biomat precludes the vertical distribution of the water. In other words, water
It's not draining in anymore.
It's not draining in. It's not going down. The water's going to hit the biomat on the left-hand side, and it's going to run out on top of that biomat, and then it's going to hit the sand.
Let's go back for 1 second. So really, really basic. It's basically a pipe that comes out that's got these small holes in it.
Correct.
Correct. And then the waste is coming down the pipe and slowly leaking out into the soil to be distributed.
Correct.
And then sometimes it plugs or eventually can't go down anymore, so it fills up and starts flooding. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Just for anybody who doesn't work with rural properties to understand how a septic field works.
That's how a septic field works?
Well, but the stuff sits in a tank where it doesn't just leach out right away. It doesn't just drain straight out. There's a tank that holds it. And
say
treats
that
it
there's a
before.
tank.
So I opted not to get right into some of the meat of things that you guys can actually see, questions that you can ask, as opposed to talking about the design of a system.
Yeah.
There actually is a pipe in this particular picture, and it's trying to depict how the water's flowing. And then at the very bottom of the picture, it's showing that it's flowing up and down, which is not what you want. You want the whole object is that you want 3 feet of soil penetration. You want 7 days of travel time. By the time, and this is the absolutely fascinating and fantastic thing about on-site sewage treatment, it is a perfect system. Within 3 feet of the water infiltrating the soil, it's basically drinkable water. Within 5 feet, it's very cleaned up, and I'm talking about removing chemicals, pathogens, heavy metals. It's
That's
amazing.
incredible.
And it says unless you're from septic tank.
And it's better than the treatment that you get when you get into municipalities.
That's unbelievable, actually. That is.
Okay.
That is amazing.
So this is a picture of a shovel full of biomat. The top black part is the actual biomat yourself. It is a real thing. It's heavily studied. And you can see that where you put your foot on the shovel is at the top of the picture, and then you get the black, goopy, nasty stuff, and then you get this beautiful sand. The sand below is basically, it looks like it's brand new.
It does. Wow.
I'm going to talk a little bit now about, I've talked about what you can see, some of the things that can cause some problems. If you are out on a site and you're on a more sophisticated system, you don't want to see pipe anywhere.
Okay.
You don't want to see fluid on the ground. This is a system that's what's called an LFA jack grade system, and I can get back into that if there's time a little later. But you can see that there's a green access port that should be more buried. It doesn't. It's not completely. It is an access port, and then to the left of that, you can see that there's a white 3/4 inch pipe.
Yeah.
Not good.
Okay.
That 3/4 inch pipe was draining 100% of whatever was pumped out into that particular system onto the ground. So it was a surface disposal system because it wasn't being managed properly, because it wasn't maintained, and because it wasn't designed and installed properly.
That's not good. So you can now.
That is not good.
So if you see fluid at surface, you've got an issue. You see a bunch of dead stuff, like I showed in that previous picture, you've got an issue.
Huh.
So
Okay.
let's talk about things that realtors are going to be going through their head. You're trying to close a deal. Who needs a functioning septic system in the future? Really, it's the purchaser. The law requires that the owner of a septic system, and I'm just going to read this just so that
Please.
Yeah.
you're not,
Go for it.
you can sort of put this in your own legal cap mind. The on-site treatment system shall ensure that the system is maintained, is operated within the design parameters of the system, and effectively treats wastewater. So that picture that I showed you of the water draining out at the end of the field and killing everything obviously doesn't meet that requirement. Now, I think if any of us want to put our lawyer cap on, and I've done that a few times in my life, you know, it hasn't been tested in court to my knowledge. This is a new standard operating practice, and that's something that I'll speak to in a moment. So, what does the vendor want to do? The vendor doesn't want to spend a bunch of money.
Right.
I'm going to talk to costs immediately after this slide, pardon me. So, the vendor really doesn't want to spend a bunch of money to get that system that I showed you the pictures of back into correctly operating.
Right.
And it can be very, very expensive. The other
negotiation about who's going to be in charge of the repairs.
Exactly. And the other thing is what is the system going to be when the owners take over?
Right.
Are they going to have how many children? What are they doing in that house? Are they going to have a chinchilla pelting operation in the garage that's going to have an impact on the design, et cetera? The other
Interesting situation.
it is. Well, so or if you're
Pelting operation. I've
see those often.
Each their own.
I have a story there.
That's funny.
So maybe a poor choice in examples.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you don't know. So the purchaser really wants to have a system that's going to work for them. They're going to be responsible for it. They need to have something designed for them. So what I would suggest that you really want to do is get it inspected prior. Vendor probably doesn't want to do it because it's going to cost a couple $100 or so. And it prepositions the vendor. It prepositions the purchaser on what's going on with that system and where that negotiation is going to go.
They know in advance because the buyer is going to get their inspections, so you might as well
Absolutely.
know going into it.
Or if you're a seller, we've had it inspected. You know, this KDM Construction, they've got a report here for us, and it's signed. This guy's certified, et cetera. Here's what's going on, and here's what we're suggesting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, it's
in
just
this.
it's going to save so much time.
Yeah.
To have that and not have to start from scratch.
So,
So you mentioned costs. Let's talk about that a little bit. I'm sure there's quite the array considering what needs to be done depending on, like you said, who's purchasing.
So the key point in this slide for you to take home or take a note of is the installed system costs are going to be somewhere around $18,000 to $50,000 plus, and that is going to be highly dictated by what the soil conditions are. So that's one thing that is really, really different today is I can't just go out and build 300 feet of lateral. I have to go in and actually investigate the soils. I have to take the soils in to a lab, get them to analyze it. They come back to me. They say, this is what you got.
Looking for drainage properties, things like that. Types of-
Yeah, where it's located on the site and all that kind of stuff. I can get into design a little bit depending on our time. But I'm saying roughly about $28 a linear foot for a base design weep style gravity field, $33 plus per linear foot for a pressure system, and then much more expensive if you're looking at an LFA jack grade or a sand mount. Tanks, let's say you want to, in that particular instance, the fellow that I showed you the picture of the dead grass, his tank was toast. So I designed a tank for him. I came up with a 2,400 gallon T-tank to accommodate absolute minimum for what his 7-bedroom, 5-person house had today.
Right.
2,400 gallons. So we're looking at about $12,500 installed for that particular piece of concrete. And the prices are on the screen there.
Real quick here. So for a failed system, can you typically just replace one or two components of it and have it work okay? Or is it typically an overhaul? I guess that's highly dependent, but what's your experience?
If it's a 20-year-old system,
Yeah.
I'm going to come out, I'm here.
Right.
Right? So it's going to be cheaper for you to do this all now.
Right.
Versus let's do the field, wait till the tank fails on you.
I understand.
So
Because
it
it's all
depends.
coming at that point.
Yeah, and some people have done some work on it. It's so variable. The systems are so complicated today, and so varied depending on the soil, that it really depends. So how am I doing for time here?
We got to wrap up, Kevin.
Oh no.
But not your fault.
No, what? Okay,
Not your
give
fault.
us give us some.
And one of the things to mention is initially when I chatted with Kevin, this could be an hour presentation, obviously.
Yeah.
And poor guy said, Kevin, we got to try and do it in 15 minutes. So this is, the amount of information you have on this is unbelievable. Like you are just.
Would you be willing to come back and join us for an in-person, in-class style?
That's what I was
business?
going to suggest.
Yeah, I like that. And maybe the next, not tomorrow or anything, but like we'll book it the next month or so here.
That would be fine.
We could do something in our professional development center, have in person. Because one of the nice things about this too is, obviously all of our realtors don't work in rural areas, but we do have, I'd probably say, a good 100 plus that do.
Yes.
Regularly.
Absolutely.
And to be able to have something in person. So this is great for people who just have a general overview, but for the people that are really using this, it would be great to be able to have an in-depth, in-class presentation where they can ask questions. And
Yeah. So how do we get them? So obviously, right now, what's the typical cost of an
inspection. Yeah.
to get it done?
I generally charge $600 if somebody in this association wants to represent that to their client that they've got such a great relationship with me that they can get it done for $500. I would be more than happy to accommodate you on that.
Awesome.
What you get is a very, very thorough inspection of the system as best as you can. I mean, a lot of this is buried. I do have a slide which speaks to what I actually do.
well, put that one up while we chat about
Yeah, we
this.
can-
Okay.
Yeah.
Go through that. Yep, please. Oh, let's go back up here. Let me just grab it here 1 second.
Sorry,
No, it's okay.
No, not
Just gonna go
you
to
at all.
it's the very last one.
and right there.
Yeah, perfect.
So that's what you're going to get. And some things like, for example, if I'm sticking a scope down an access port, most of the systems don't have access ports today, we're required to install them. It's a pretty thorough look. And if I get in and it's a gravity-based system, it's really, really basic. There's not much I can do. I'm probably going to come back to you and say, I'm not really comfortable with charging you this amount of money. Having said that, if it's a sand mound, I've got a lot of work to do. I'm looking at a manual. I'm going to do a comparison of what was going on in that manual and what this particular system is doing, and scope investigations, GPSing, et cetera.
Wow.
One of the things we'll do as well, Kevin, is we're going to share your information with the company. We have an email that goes out after this, and we'll share that with everybody so it has your contact information. Who should pump the tank, really quickly? Pump before the inspection?
Well, you don't need to pump it.
You don't need to pump it,
to
okay.
inspect. As a matter of fact, like we have little tools that we can flick the float and the pump kicks on, and we can tell whether or not the alarms and stuff are working without pumping the system. We also have little tools that can tell us the depth of what the sludge is. I can generally see from just opening up, I can tell you how many gallons it is roughly.
Right.
I can tell you the general condition of the tank. Some designs are better than others. If you have a single manhole cover, typically the guys that come and pump, I don't pump, I can get people out to pump.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
fair
what I
enough.
do.
Yeah, appreciate that, yeah.
They drop their big hose down, and there's a baffle wall in between the sludge accumulation portion of the tank and the dose tank. And sure enough, it's right in the middle, and they drop it on it. And over time, over 20 years, that gets damaged, beat up, and it's no longer doing what it needs to do, and that's holding back the sludge and scum in the working chamber from the dose chamber.
Interesting.
Time to replace.
Yeah. Well, Kevin,
Wow.
I mean, you have so much knowledge here, and again, that actual visuals that he has and stuff are so telling of the Google Earth concept of it.
Yeah.
We're going to share Kevin Murphy's information out with KDM Construction.
Yeah.
Make
And
sure
we'll
you
make
guys
sure
know
we
how
get
to get a
Kevin
hold
back
of
for a
him.
lunch and learn or something as well.
Exactly. So we'll get him involved, and Kevin, thank you so much for your time and awesome information out there.
Yeah, thank you
Lindsay,
very much.
Kieran, thank you very much for having me here. Audra as well, thank you for setting this up.
That's right. Audra Reinhardt was
Yeah,
our connection for
absolutely.
this. So big shout out to Audra, and thank you so much. Obviously, you've done some work with Audra in the past.
I just saw her pretty face online.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we're gonna be back with Ettore talking about our Calgary Regional Partnership. So stick with us right away here.